Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be going over the 8.1 to 8.3 quiz review. The actual quiz, each question will be worth 2 points, 1 point for using the correct method, and 1 point for the correct answer. This wants me to solve each system of equations and to write my answer as an ordered pair. Number 1 and 2 want me to use substitution. This is where I isolate a variable and then I go ahead and plug it into the other equation to solve for that variable, and then I plug that in to get my final answer. So on number 1, I am going to isolate my y. This is because it's got a nicer coefficient than the rest. It's just got a -1, which will be easier to isolate for. I'm going to start off by adding 5, 6y to both sides. 5, 6y. This is going to give me -x equals 5 6y minus 7. I want to make that y positive, so I'm going to divide all three of my terms by -1. This is going to give me x equals -5 6y plus 7. Then I want to go ahead and plug into the other equation, so not the one I just solved for. So I'm going to be plugging this in for the x over here. I am going to have 6 and then times the -5 6y plus 7, and the rest of my original equation, so plus 5y equals -3. I want to go ahead and distribute. 6 times -5 6y is going to give me -5y, because those 6's will cancel out. 6 times 7 gives me 42. I still have this 5y equals -3. I add my y's together. That cancels out and gives me 0. Then I have 42 equals -3. This doesn't work, so my answer here is no solution, because 42 does not equal -3. Okay, same idea for number 2. I want to isolate one of my variables. I'm going to choose this one because this y doesn't have a fraction. So I'm going to start by subtracting -3/4 x on both sides. This gets me -y equals -3/4 x plus 4. I'm going to go ahead and divide each of my terms by -1. This is going to give me y equals 3/4 x minus 4. Again, I want to go ahead and plug in for the variable I solved it for. So I solved for y. I'm going to plug into y in my original equation. Or not my original equation, my first equation. So I have 1/2 x plus 3/4. And then instead of y, I'm going to put what I just solved for. So 3/4 x minus 4. And this should equal 10. Then I want to go ahead and distribute. So I have 1/2 x. 3/4 times 3/4 is going to give me 9/16, because I multiply straight across. 3 times 3 gives me 9, 4 times 4 gives me 16. And then 3/4 times -4 gives me -3. Still equals 10. I am going to combine like terms, so I want to figure out what 1/2 plus 9/16 is. Which gives me 17/16 x. And I have -3 equals 10. So then I want to go ahead and add 3 to both sides. This gives me 17/16 x equals 13. I want to get rid of that fraction out front, so I'm going to multiply by 16 over 17 on both sides. That is going to leave me with x on the left. Then I have 13 times 16 divided by 17. If I turn this back into a fraction, it gives me 208 over 17. Then I want to go ahead and plug this back in. So I'll do this up here. I'm going to pick the bottom equation because there's no fraction in front of y. So I'm going to do 3/4 times that answer I just got, which is 208 over 17. minus y equals 4. I'm going to multiply those two fractions together. So 3/4 times 208 divided by 17. And I want to turn this back into a fraction. Gives me 156 over 17 minus y equals 4. I want to subtract the 156 over 17 on both sides. This gets me negative y equals 4 minus 156 over 17. Simplify that. Negative 88 over 17. I want to divide both of these by negative 1. And I get y equals 88 over 17. So this is going to give me my coordinate point of 208 over 17, comma 88 over 17 for my y value. On the actual quiz, the numbers work out a lot nicer. They shouldn't be crazy fractions. I think if there are fractions, they're not anything like with a denominator over 10 or so. Numbers 3 and 4 want me to solve using elimination. This is where I cancel out a variable to solve. On number 3, I am going to cancel out my x variables. So this one needs to be multiplied by 2. So they have the same coefficient. I'm going to multiply each of my terms by 2. This is going to give me 6x. 2 times negative 2y gives me negative 4y. 2 times 5 gives me 10. I'm going to go ahead and add down. The x's cancel out, the y's cancel out, leaves me with 0 on the left. Negative 10 minus 10 gives me 0. So I want to go ahead, and because I have 0 equals 0, I want to use the variables. I am going to make x equal a. So then I'm going to have 3 times a minus 2y equals 5. I want to move the a over. So I have negative 2y equals 5 minus 3a. I'm going to go ahead and divide each of my terms by negative 2. And I will get y equals negative 5 halves plus 3 over 2a. So this can give me one of the answers. Could be a comma negative 5 halves plus 3 halves a. I'm going to go ahead and solve this as if I had done y instead. So both of these will give me correct answers. It's just depending on which variable you chose to set equal to a. So if I make y equal a, plugging back into the first equation will give me 3x minus 2 times a equals 5. I want to go ahead and add the 2a to both sides. This will give me 3x equals 5 plus 2a. And then I would divide both sides by 3. So then I get x equals 5/3 plus 2/3 a. So my coordinate point here would be 5/3 plus 2/3 a, comma a. Both of these answers would be correct on the test or on the quiz, and you only need to give me one of them. But I just wanted to show you how to solve out for both of these depending on which one you picked. Okay. Number 4 again wants me to solve for elimination. None of my coefficients will make it so that I can just easily multiply one equation. I'm going to have to multiply both equations. I'm going to pick the first one because that's got smaller numbers. I mean the first variable, so x. I'm going to multiply my first equation by negative 3. So it's going to give me negative 15x minus 18y equals negative 72. On my bottom equation, I'm just going to multiply by 5. This is because I want my x's to have the same coefficient, and the smallest number that both 3 and 5 multiply into is 15. So this gives me 15x. 5 times 5y gives me 25y. 5 times 18 gives me 90. So then I want to go ahead and add these two equations together because I'm using the elimination method. My x's cancel out. Negative 18y plus 25y gives me 7y. Negative 72 plus 90 gives me, let me double check this one, 18. Then I want to go ahead and divide both sides by 7. This gets me y equals 18 over 7. I want to plug back in. I'll plug into the first equation. I want to go ahead and multiply. So that's going to give me 108 over 7. I want to go ahead and subtract that fraction from both sides. So I'm going to have 24 minus 108 over 7, which gives me 60 over 7. I need to get my x completely alone. So I'm going to divide both sides by 5. If I type this on my calculator, I can do parentheses 60 divided by 7, and then divide by that 5. If I turn it back into a fraction, this gets me 12 over 7. So my final answer is 12 over 7, comma 18 over 7. Okay, so then I'm going to move on to the back. These want me to solve using any method, and they are 3 variable equations. On this first one, I have that my z equals 2. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to plug this into the 2 variable equation that has z already. This will make things so much easier for me when I go to solve. So I am going to plug in 2 right here. I have negative y plus 2 equals 4. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2 on both sides. This gets me negative y equals 2. I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by negative 1, which gets me y equals negative 2. Then I want to go ahead and take these and plug them into my top equation, which has all 3 variables. I have 4x, because I don't know my x value, minus 2. My y value is negative 2. And plus my z value, which is positive 2. This should equal 8. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply out. I have 4x plus 4 plus 2 equals 8. 4 plus 2 equals 6. Then I want to go ahead and subtract 6 on both sides. I get 4x equals 2. Then I want to go ahead and divide both sides by 4. This, when I type it into the calculator, 2 divided by 4 gets me 1/2. So x equals 1/2. I'm going to write my coordinate point up here. I have 1/2, negative 2, and 2. Remember, coordinate points always go in alphabetical order, so it's going to go x, y, z when I have 3 letters. On number 6, I have 3 equations again, but this time one of my equations has 2 variables solved out. 2 variables isolated, so I want to go ahead and cancel out my x or my z's. On this one, I have a negative z, so to cancel out with the bottom equation, I want to multiply this by 5. Each of those terms is going to go ahead and get multiplied by 5, so I end up with 15x minus 5y minus 5z equals 5. I'm going to add the 2 bottom equations together. 6 plus 15 gives me 21x. Negative y plus negative 5y gives me negative 6y. Z's cancel out. 16 plus 5 gives me 21. Then if I look at these 2 equations, it's probably going to be better to cancel out the y just because I don't want to turn that x into a 21. So I'm going to multiply this top equation by 3. That will give me 3x plus 6y equals 15. If I add straight down, 21 plus 3 gives me 24x. The y's cancel out. 21 plus 15 gives me 36. I want to go ahead and divide both sides by 24. I get x equals, and then I want to do 36 divided by 24, which if I move this out of the light, gives me 3/2. I'm going to go ahead and plug into my top equation to solve for y, since it's got 2 variables, and that'll make it easier to solve. Let's use red for x. So I have 3/2 plus 2y equals 5. I'm going to subtract 3/2 on both sides. I get 2y equals 5 minus 3/2. Turn it back into a fraction. 7/2. Then I want to go ahead and divide out my 2. So what I'm going to do on the calculator is I'm going to do parentheses 7 divided by 2, divided by 2, turn it back into a fraction, gets me 7/4. Then now that I have my x and y, I can plug into any of the 3 variable equations. I'm going to pick the second one just because there aren't coefficients here. And the less coefficients or the smaller the coefficients, the easier the problems are to work with. So I have 3 times my x value, which I got was 3/2, minus my y value, which was 7/4, minus z equals 1. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 3 times 3/2 gives me 9/2. Negative times the 7/4 gives me negative 7/4, still minus z, and still equaling 1. So on my calculator, I want to do 9/2 minus 7/4. Turn it back into a fraction. This gives me 11/4 minus z equals 1. I want to go ahead and subtract 11/4 on both sides. So I have negative z, 1 minus 11/4. Turn it back into a fraction. Gives me negative 7/4. I'm going to divide both of these by a negative 1, which gets me z equals positive 7/4. I have all 3 variables now, so I just want to write it in my coordinate point as x, y, z. So I have 3/2 for x, 7/4 for y, 7/4 for z, and this is my final answer. So on the actual quiz, the first 4 problems, all 6 problems will be worth 2 points, but the first 4 are graded 1 point for using the correct method, so substitution or elimination, and then 1 point for the correct answer. On these back ones, they are graded 1 point for work and then 1 point for the correct answer.